In July 2025, the U.S. Space Force launched Resolute Space, the largest orbital-focused training exercise in its history. Over 700 Guardians and international allies gathered to test how prepared they are for the complex realities of space operations, including satellite management, electromagnetic interference, and cyber threats. This video dives deep into what Resolute Space is, why it matters right now, what they're training for, and how it will shape the future of space operations in ways that could impact every satellite, network, and the global communication system we rely on today. Resolute Space 2025 is not just another military exercise. It's a pivotal leap in how modern space operations are tested. Designed by the U.S. Space Force, it involved more than 700 Guardians, Space Force personnel, across multiple key locations including Schriever, Buckley, and Peterson Space Force bases in Colorado, Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam in Hawaii, and other facilities in the Indo-Pacific region. The exercise is part of a broader Department of Defense readiness operation known as Resolute Sentinel/REFORPAC, which brought together over 12,000 personnel from multiple branches, alongside 350-plus aircraft. But what set Resolute Space apart was its unique focus on orbital operations, the space battlefield, where communication satellites, global positioning systems, and observation tools are critical. The purpose? To simulate real-world threats to space systems and test how well the Space Force can detect, defend, and operate in contested orbital zones. The team worked with live satellite systems, commercial technology providers, and advanced virtual simulations to recreate high-pressure scenarios. These included challenges like GPS disruptions, interference with satellite data streams, and simulated electromagnetic attacks, commanded by Colonel J. Steingold and Lieutenant Colonel Sean Green. The scenario was custom designed for Space Force's Space Delta IX, which specializes in orbital warfare tactics. Their mission was to guide Guardians through real-time crisis simulations without scripts, forcing leadership to adapt dynamically. This training marks a shift from theoretical strategies to real-time, hands-on decision-making in a space environment that is becoming increasingly crowded and competitive. It also allowed coordination with international allies, adding layers of complexity and real-world realism. The scale and integrated nature of Resolute Space demonstrate that space is no longer an abstract domain. It's now a frontline for ensuring global infrastructure stays intact. One glitch in a satellite can ripple into finance, navigation, weather, and emergency response systems. This kind of training ensures we're not just occupying space, we're ready to protect it. What makes Resolute Space 2025 so remarkable isn't just its size, but how it was executed. This wasn't a scripted drill with fixed outcomes. Instead, it featured unscripted, adaptive scenarios, putting Guardians in unfamiliar, high-pressure situations that demanded real-time decision-making. A major innovation was the integration of live satellite assets with commercial technology and advanced simulation environments. The Space Force blended actual orbital systems with digitally generated threats, mimicking everything from signal interference to spoofing attacks, where satellite data is altered or misdirected. The exercise used a combination of U.S. government satellites, privately owned platforms, and simulated signals to replicate contested space conditions. These simulations were so realistic that operators had to treat them as if actual systems were under pressure, with zero room for error. One particularly advanced component involved testing space domain awareness. That is, the ability to identify and track objects in orbit, distinguish friend from foe, and assess potential anomalies or unexpected behavior. This is critical in today's orbital climate, where over 27,000 objects are actively tracked and thousands more go unmonitored. Guardians also work through scenarios involving cyber threats aimed at command and control systems. These challenges trained operators to detect suspicious access, reroute communications, or shift satellites to different orbits as a safeguard, all in real time. To further raise the stakes, the command structure included multi-echelon coordination. That means operators had to work across ranks, functions, and even time zones, just like they would in an actual orbital crisis. Teams communicated across states and countries, synchronized their responses, and learned to make split-second calls based on live intelligence. In addition to Guardians, personnel from allied space forces and agencies participated, including observers from partners in the Indo-Pacific region. This international presence added layers of realism and demonstrated the global nature of space operations today. By combining cutting-edge tech with unpredictable challenges, Resolute Space moved beyond traditional drills. It served as a live laboratory for testing technologies, doctrines, and leadership under pressure, preparing personnel for a domain where errors aren't just costly, they're catastrophic. Why should you care about an orbital training exercise? Because the systems being tested during Resolute Space 2025 are the backbone of modern life. From GPS and mobile networks to air traffic control and emergency communications, satellites silently support nearly every aspect of daily life. Any interference, degradation, or failure in these systems could cause widespread disruptions, from delayed flights and financial chaos to lost communication during natural disasters. What Resolute Space 2025 proves is that the U.S. Space Force is treating these vulnerabilities seriously. This training sent a clear message. Readiness in space is now just as critical as readiness on Earth. Another reason this matters? The space environment is no longer just about exploration, it's about resilience. With more countries and private companies launching satellites, the orbital landscape is becoming congested and unpredictable. In this environment, even a small piece of debris can pose massive threats. That's why training exercises like Resolute Space are vital. They simulate how to operate safely, protect assets, and coordinate globally. What also stands out is the shift in mindset. Space Force isn't training only for worst-case scenarios. They're actively testing for gray area challenges like interference, misinformation, and systems malfunction under unknown causes. These subtle threats are harder to detect, but can be just as devastating if not handled properly. On a strategic level, this kind of training helps the U.S. and its partners build trust, share expertise, and standardize responses to potential space incidents. It's no longer a solo mission. Resilience in space now means collaboration across borders, technologies, and doctrines. Furthermore, the scale of investment in this kind of simulation signals that space operations are entering a new phase, where real-time response, interoperability, and cross-domain thinking are not optional, but essential. So while Resolute Space 2025 might look like just another exercise on paper, it represents something much bigger, a vision for how we protect, operate, and innovate in space. Not as a luxury, but as a necessity for how the modern world functions. The takeaway? Space isn't a far-off frontier anymore. It's part of your everyday life. And training like this helps keep it that way. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into how space technology is evolving and what it means for all of us here on Earth.